Welcome back to another episode of the Alignment Podcast. Today we have Linda Ho. She's the Chief People Officer at Nearmap and has a plethora of experiences in the people leadership world. And we're really excited to have her here with us today on the show. Thanks for joining, Linda.
So happy to be here, Jacob. And I'm new to Nearmap. I've been there about, 3 months now. So I definitely am hopefully bringing in a fresh perspective. Nearmap is an aerial AI imaging company. So think of Google Maps, but for the insurance claims, government, and various private companies usage.
That's awesome. How have the first 3 months been?
It's been amazing. I mean, I challenge everyone to make yourself uncomfortable as much as possible because that's where the real growth happens. And I was definitely drinking from the fire hose. Nearmap is an Australian-based company. That's where it's headquartered with offices worldwide. So I spent the first month traveling to Australia, meeting the teams in North America. I happened to join during the annual kickoff. So it was a great
Oh,
time to meet
awesome.
everybody, understand the strategy, but it's definitely a departure from the industries that I've been in before, so everything is new for me.
That's cool. And give me 2 minutes about before Nearmap, what your career looked like and the things that excited you most that led you to Nearmap.
Sure. So I might be a rarity, but I am a career HR person. Started out right after college in recruitment, loved it, realized that, gosh, I could play a key role in helping people find the best match where they can spend a majority of their lives working, right? Why not help them find the best match in terms of company and role? And then from there, I quickly pivoted into more of an HR business partner generalist role, was part of the first .com boom, love the excitement, the energy, the movement, get stuff done quickly. That's definitely, one thing I took away from that first .com boom, working in the fiber optic space. Then I moved into HR consulting, worked for biotech, because when the money has been frozen in other areas, there's always money in biotech.
Yes.
Um, so it was good to be part of that world for a little bit. And then I joined Autodesk, where I stayed for actually a long time, for 14 years.
Wow.
And I played in various roles, mostly as an HR business partner, but dabbled in compensation, A, learning and development, DEI culture, the whole nine yards. And it was so great being able to gain different skills, learn different aspects of HR in such an established company. I left during COVID to take on my first CPO role at Seismic. Seismic is a SaaS enablement platform for go-to-market teams. I stayed there for about 4.5 years, doubled the company, doubled the revenue, and it felt like, I accomplished what I wanted to do and wanted to do something similar at a different company in a different stage, and with a different kind of focus. So that's when I joined Nearmap. I did join because I knew some key leaders, and the way they talked about the culture, the way they talked about the growth was really exciting for me. It's like a rule of 60 company, which is unheard of. And, there's tremendous potential to really penetrate the US a little bit more and all the other markets that they're not in now. And I wanted to learn a different industry. I've been in tech, etc. So this seemed like a good pivot, but with enough of a connection between data and AI that I can build on my experience. So far, so good. It's been fun working with friends, and it's been fascinating learning a new industry.
That's awesome.
Mm.
So I'm curious, sounds right. You spent a long time at Autodesk, where I'm sure, um, 14 years is enough to feel like you might work there forever. And and I'm sure we were talking about this a little bit before we hit record, but what I'm curious, what things have shifted in the way you view, team development and career development from since you were at a company for a long time versus now in sort of shorter stints, and what people should be focusing on.
Yeah. So, I probably, in retrospect, wouldn't recommend that someone stay at a company for so long. recruiters that I had spoken to while I was at Autodesk, they were like, "Ah, you're not as marketable as you think you are because you stayed at some place for so long." At that time, I disagreed, and there's part of me that still disagrees because I was very intentional when I was there, shifting my career every 2 years, taking on new roles, learning different parts of the business, but all within a network that I had cultivated and felt very comfortable with. So the downfall of that is I didn't have as strong of a network within the community outside of that company. And I did realize when I was leaving and after I entered a different industry that kind of holds you back a little bit because you don't always have access to the best practices other companies are doing if your network is entirely in one company.
Yeah,
Some things to think about is be really conscious about developing skills, gaining new and different experiences, really being uncomfortable. If you're uncomfortable, that means you're growing, and that means you're probably using different aspects of your skills, whether it's, technical skills or communication skills or simply building your network. Those are all great things as you pave your career path.
that's cool. If there's, well, I can resonate with that greatly. So I worked at United Health Group for about 5 years in different areas. And there were a lot of people who are lifers. They work there for 30, 35 years.
Right.
And it was easy to start to think in terms of like, oh, I'm this grade level in the company. And like when I get promoted, here's this, and think of that instead of like, okay, what are the things that actually matter for my
Right.
career? And so yeah, I can understand that.
You just sparked something about grade levels and titles we had chatted a little bit about, but I'm really passionate about. I feel like oftentimes, whether it's cultural, how we were brought up, or just the hierarchy of companies has instilled in
Yeah.
us to value artificial things like titles or grade levels that really don't translate from one company to another. You can be promoted in one company, but the job is vastly different than another company in terms of true responsibilities. But we as a society and, me myself, we get very fixated on that title. I want that senior, the
Yep.
director, or VP, or whatever. And if you step back and you look at it, you realize that is not transferable. Every company has a different hierarchy in terms of titles and grade levels. But what is transferable are those skills that you develop along the way, the network that you nurture, the opportunities that causes you to think about things differently and challenges the status quo. So I urge everybody to focus on that instead of chasing that next title, that next promotion, because you can't take those things with you, but you can absolutely take those skills that you develop with you.
And I think it adds, right? You you didn't say this word, but you described it, right? Perspective on, right? I've worked places where, we had 150 employees and there were a ton of VPs and they weren't truly VPs. It was like just managers. But the understanding of like, okay, how does a business work? And there's like individual contributor and then you're leading a team and then you're leading people who lead teams and how can you best help develop that the experience and perspective and confidence that those different experiences can help develop independent of what job titles are, I think are the things that matter most.
Spot on. I think experiences and then challenging your assumptions. Oh, I've done it this way in the past. There's probably like 100 different ways to do it. And I think for the key to being a really good manager is to realize that people are going to take different paths to get to this goal. But what can you do to clarify the goal that you want your team to rally behind and give them enough context so they can carve that path, but also give them a little bit of freedom? Because with that comes accountability, comes ownership, and then they'll be moving along with you to that goal that you've articulated.
Yeah. I'm curious, especially as you come into Nearmap, how many employees are there? And how big is the team?
Oh gosh, I think there's about 800 employees globally.
Okay. So
Yeah.
not small
N-
anymore.
Not small, not huge, but not small. Yes.
Big enough that you probably won't ever know everybody's name.
Yes. Yeah, which is such a shame because, gosh, I do want to know people's names, and we spend so much of our lives at work. I think it's
Yeah.
important to have that human connection.
Well, for sure. I'm curious, you obviously that's big enough that you can't come in and train all of the, and help mentor all of the leaders within the company. How help mentor them to, carry out what you just talked about, about trusting and empowering the teams. How do you do that as a new head of or, chief people officer? How do
Mhm.
you help the existing managers and leaders to do that?
Well, to be honest, Jacob, I'm still figuring it out, but I can share what I've done in the past because I think I'll be leveraging some of that here at Nearmap. So when I joined Seismic, I think it was about this size 600, 700. We grew to about 1600 before I left.
Wow.
And it was exciting because it was both organic but also acquisition growth. And one of the things I realized when I joined Seismic was we didn't have mission, vision, and values because it was a founder led company. And he knew it, he breathed it. Everybody he interacted with, they knew, what the goals were and how to get stuff done in the company. But once you get beyond a couple hundred, and even that is pushing it, you do really need to like memorialize it somehow.
Yeah.
So we went through a process to develop mission, vision, values, and we really tried to integrate it into the company. So it wasn't just words on the wall. It was truly how we operationalized everything that we did. And it gave people enough context as to where we're heading, what are the OKRs for the year, what's important to us, so they could then prioritize their work accordingly. Because we're all adults. I believe that we want to do the best work that we can. Right? So, how do you give people the tools so they can make the best decisions and really drive the company forward, embracing all of their background experiences and their different ways of thinking into the process? So, that really worked well for Seismic, and I hope to bring something similar to Nearmap. Good thing is, Nearmap has a very strong culture. The values are definitely integrated in how people work. We probably need a little bit of fine tuning in terms of our annual OKRs and our priorities, but that's, expected in any company. And that's probably where I'll focus because I think once you have that established, the leaders can then rally around it, right? Because the values help articulate what those leadership expectations are, how we show up, how we collaborate, how we, operate within the system, so to speak. And then the OKRs and the goals give you something to focus on as a company. So there's good alignment.
Yeah, it's crazy how well it works when a company can establish what their values are and get really clear on it, and then those inform the behaviors that
Mhm.
then drive the rest of everything, right? And then when there's that alignment, as silly as it sounds, it's magic, right? Because people no longer have to double, question everything. They understand, hey, if, one of our core values is, you know, creating unquestionable value. That's one of the core values at our company. And
Mm,
then it helps inform, okay, well, how do we treat our customers? It's like,
mhm.
well, it's more important that we help them solve their problems than it is that we close a deal. And so like it's different. And the important thing is it has to be true to who you are as a
Mhm.
company. And so that is always an interesting shift from, the founder being like the literal embodiment of those values and then
Mhm.
trying to pull them out and figure out, okay, how do we align everybody with that? I'm curious, does Nearmap have defined core values or are you going to go through that exercise here soon?
Nearmap does, and it's integrated in recognition, it's integrated in performance management, it's even integrated to how we show up with customers. So there's an internal and external
Oh,
view
cool.
of it, which I think is fantastic. That means that people truly are behaving according to the values, which to your point, when it works, it's magic. And when it doesn't work is when I feel like people start to micromanage because they think putting more rules and policies and more inspection will help create the behaviors that they're looking for. But I actually think if you pull back, what's probably missing is those values, that shared understanding of where we're going, that purpose driven aligned work. And once you have that established, you don't need to be, the micromanager that sometimes can happen. I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to drive behavior. I think they'll be much more successful if they pull back a little bit and fix the fundamental alignments that may not be fully there.
Yeah, I've heard before this idea that management solely exists just to handle misalignment. That if everybody could be aligned on the mission and vision of what was supposed to be done or where you're aiming, then you don't need kind of the traditional management structure that exists in business. It's kind of a far shot, but I do think it makes a huge difference, both for that management relationship, but then also just the overall happiness and fulfillment of the people together, because you feel like you're actually part of a team and you're working towards something together. Have you seen that on teams where when people are aligned and it's working well, that they have a totally different experience versus not?
Absolutely. I mean, purpose-driven work wins every time, which is why sometimes you'll see a lot of nonprofits that are relatively flat because it's very clear what their purpose is. Everybody's there for that reason, and they don't necessarily need so many layers in order to kind of deal with the misalignment to your point. I've definitely seen that. You see it sometimes though when the company's smaller because it's just
Yeah.
easier to deal with alignment. What I'm fascinated about is what's going to happen when AI plays a bigger role in our workforce. And I wonder if there's going to be that same misalignment that humans experience, then AI, bots experience, right? And if they don't experience that level of misalignment, will the organizations look different and look flatter or just wildly different than what we're used to now? I mean, the future is unwritten and it's completely fascinating.
Yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about that before, but I think the misalignment would stem from a similar, you know, thing where right now, if at Nearmap, you have a conversation with the CEO and you like get really clear on something,
Mhm.
and then you go and talk to somebody else and you just assume that they know about it
Yeah.
and it was never communicated, like there's going to be some misalignment.
Yeah.
Or if then he went and had a conversation with somebody else and it was slightly different,
Yep.
then and it wasn't recorded, then there's gonna be misalignment. And I think with AI, it's the same, right? Short of it listening, like, us recording every single conversation we ever have and then
Mhm.
feeding it in, that happens now where, people don't like fill out a Notion doc on something and then like the processes are different. And so then there is misalignment when it's like, cool, do we send the customer the free t-shirt like a week or 3 weeks after they sign? Like where where is it? But yeah, that is really interesting. I think the thing that I'm really excited about with AI is how can AI be useful to create more alignment
Mhm.
within the teams and people? Almost more instead of the implementation of AI to be like, hey, how do we save and make more money?
Mhm.
Which I think is useful and we should do that. But also, hey, how do we make work more purposeful and meaningful and enjoyable for people?
Yeah. I think that's
Because
a
that's
very
more sustainable.
human-centered way of thinking about leveraging AI, and I love it. Because I don't think AI will take over roles. It's just we're not ready for it. Maybe in 50 years, who knows, but not immediately. Certainly not with the experiences I've had with some of the AI-enabled vendors, but it can definitely help us be more effective. I think it can help us be more clear in our communications. I believe clarity is kindness, but oftentimes in human communications, there's so much nuance in what we say,
Yeah.
how we say it. It's influenced by our culture, linguistics, even. That I think AI can help clear some of the stuff up and help us move a little bit faster.
Yeah. It is a there's lots to think about and dream about. I'm excited to see how it keeps, how AI does influence the way that we work. And,
Yeah.
I'm a big believer that it will be net positive, but
Mm.
I think we'll have to be intentional about it.
Yes.
Or else, with lots of things in life and business, it'll just optimize to how does it make the most money?
Yeah.
And that sometimes does not turn out well.
No. No, for sure not.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much, Linda, for coming on the show today. If people want to follow along with your journey at Nearmap, how's the best way to do that?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn, so that's where folks can find me. I love chatting about all things HR, people, leadership, AI, of course. So feel free to find me on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you. I had a ton of fun. Appreciate being invited.